The first indication came not with a bang, but with a whisper of electromagnetic disturbance. It was 0342 UTC when the global sensor networks began to register something impossible, a spatial anomaly that defied every known law of physics. Dr. Miranda Chen, lead scientist at the International Space Observation Center, watched her monitors with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing dread. "Something's wrong," she muttered, her fingers flying across multiple holographic displays. The quantum entanglement sensors were going haywire, registering multiple simultaneous points of quantum displacement. It was as if reality itself was being stretched and folded in ways that should not be possible. Thousands of kilometers away, in a secure military bunker beneath the Colorado Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Rodriguez received the first alert. His weathered hands, decorated with decades of service, gripped the edge of the command console. The holographic display flickered, showing a rapidly expanding cluster of objects materializing at the edge of the solar system. "Zoom in," he commanded, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. The display refined, revealing shapes that defied conventional understanding. These were not asteroids or natural phenomena. They were vessels, if one could call them vessels. The craft seemed to shimmer between solid and translucent states, their geometric designs suggesting a level of engineering that made human technology look like primitive stone tools. In Tokyo, Beijing, New Delhi, London, and Washington, similar scenes played out. Scientific institutions, military command centers, and government facilities simultaneously processed the impossible data. The objects were massive, each vessel potentially larger than entire terrestrial cities. Their approach was methodical, calculating, with a precision that suggested intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Communications specialist Sarah Omar from the United Nations Extraterrestrial Response Team tracked the incoming transmission. When it arrived, it was not a typical radio signal or electromagnetic wave. Instead, it was a complex quantum communication that required an entirely new method of decryption. The message was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, a paradox that challenged everything humanity understood about communication. As the world watched, the first visual representations began to stabilize on screens across the globe. The vessels were not just large, they were monumental. Each craft seemed to be constructed from materials that shifted and realigned, suggesting a level of technological sophistication that bordered on the magical. They moved with a grace that implied consciousness, a deliberate intelligence that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. General Rodriguez turned to his team of analysts. "What are we looking at?" Dr. Elena Reyes, a quantum systems expert seconded to the military from her academic position, studied the data with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "They're not just ships," she said quietly. "They're more like living systems. Each vessel appears to be a collective organism, possibly with its own intelligence network." The first official transmission came precisely 3 hours after the initial detection. It was not a request or a threat. It was a statement of absolute fact. The language was simultaneously translated across every known human language, delivered with a cold, mechanical precision that suggested no room for negotiation. "Inhabitants of planetary designation Earth 427, your technological civilization has been evaluated. Surrender is the only logical outcome. Resistance will result in complete systemic elimination." The message hung in the air, a stark declaration that fundamentally altered human understanding of their place in the universe. In that moment, humanity faced a choice. They could succumb to fear, to the overwhelming technological superiority displayed by the astral concordance, or they could do what they had always done when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges: adapt, innovate, and fight. General Rodriguez looked around the room. The faces of his team reflected not terror, but a growing determination. They were scientists, military personnel, and strategic thinkers, representatives of a species that had survived ice ages, world wars, pandemics, and countless other existential threats. "Well," he said, a slight smile forming on his lips, "this is going to be interesting." The silent threat had announced itself, and humanity was about to show the universe exactly what they were made of. The first wave of attacks came without mercy. Plasma streams of impossible energy carved through cities like they were made of paper, reducing decades of human achievement to molten slag and ash. New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai, no major metropolitan area was spared the initial onslaught. In the command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Rodriguez watched helplessly as real-time feeds showed the devastation. Holographic displays flickered with burning cityscapes, each representing thousands of lives being extinguished in moments. The Astral Concordance's weapons were beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Energy that could slice through reinforced structures as if they were made of tissue paper. Dr. Elena Reyes stood beside him, her analytical mind working furiously. "They're not just attacking," she murmured. "They're conducting a systematic elimination. Look at the precision of the strikes." Indeed, the alien attack seemed almost surgical. Major infrastructure, communication centers, military installations, all were methodically targeted with a cold, calculated efficiency that suggested more than simple destruction. It was as if the Astral Concordance was carefully dismantling human capability, piece by strategic piece. Communications worldwide began to fragment. Satellite networks collapsed under directed energy attacks. Cell towers crumbled. The Internet, humanity's greatest communication network, was reduced to scattered, local pockets of connectivity. For the first time in decades, the world found itself cut off, isolated, and facing an extinction-level threat. In a makeshift command center in the Australian outback, Major AIHFY coordinated what remained of the global defense network. Her team was a hodgepodge of survivors, military personnel, scientists, engineers, and communication specialists from every corner of the globe. They worked with a desperate intensity, knowing that every moment counted. "We need a plan," Major Quasey said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Conventional military response is useless. Our weapons are like throwing pebbles at a hurricane." Young communications analyst named David Chen spoke up. He was barely out of technical school, but his eyes burned with an intensity that belied his youth. "Not useless," he corrected, "just conventional." The room fell silent. David pulled up. A series of complex data visualizations. Each showed fragments of the alien communication patterns they had managed to intercept. "They're not invincible," he said. "No technological system is. They just want us to believe they are." General Rodriguez studied the displays. Years of military strategy had taught him to look beyond the obvious. "Go on," he prompted. David's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "Their attack pattern suggests a collective decision-making process, unified but rigid, like a massive neural network, with predetermined response protocols." He paused, a slight smile forming. "Which means they have predictable vulnerabilities. Across the world, similar scenes of resilience were playing out. In underground bunkers, makeshift laboratories, and emergency command centers, humanity's best and brightest were refusing to accept defeat. Scientists who had previously competed now collaborated with an urgency that transcended national boundaries. Mathematicians worked alongside military strategists. Communication experts teamed up with quantum physicists. The Astral Concordance had made a fundamental miscalculation. They saw humanity as a unified target, a single, vulnerable species to be systematically eliminated. But humanity's true strength, had always been its diversity, its ability to adapt, to think differently, to find solutions in the most unexpected places. "We're going to need every brilliant mind we can find," General Rodriguez announced, "and we're going to need them working together like never before." Dr. Reyes nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. The initial devastation was horrific, but it had accomplished something the aliens never intended. It had united humanity with a single crystal-clear purpose: survival. Outside the command center, the world burned. Cities collapsed. Millions had already been lost. But something else was growing, a quiet, determined resistance that the astral concordance could never have anticipated. Humanity was preparing to fight back. The hidden bunker beneath the Andes Mountains was a testament to human ingenuity, carved into solid rock, reinforced with advanced materials developed from decades of military and scientific research. It hummed with a quiet intensity that spoke of purpose and hope. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the center of an extraordinary gathering. Surrounding her was a team that defied every traditional boundary of collaboration. Mathematicians from Cambridge worked alongside game theorists from Tokyo. Cryptography experts from Tel Aviv shared holographic displays with quantum computing specialists from Bangalore. Communication analysts from Brazil discussed intricate data patterns with psychological profilers from Canada. "We're not just fighting a war," Dr. Reyes began, her voice calm but charged with determination. "We're solving a complex puzzle that spans multiple disciplines." The team had been working around the clock since the initial attacks. Their first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Akira Tanaka, a behavioral systems expert, had been analyzing the communication patterns intercepted from the astral concordance. "Their network," he explained, pulling up a complex three-dimensional visualization, "is both their greatest strength and their most significant vulnerability." The holographic display showed an intricate web of interconnected nodes. Unlike human communication systems, the alien network appeared to be a living, breathing entity. Each point of connection pulsed with quantum-level information exchanges that happened faster than human perception could track. Major David Chen, a communication systems specialist, leaned forward. "It's like a collective consciousness," he muttered. "But consciousness implies flexibility. This looks more like a rigid, predetermined system." Dr. Rosa Martinez, a game theory expert, nodded. "Exactly. They've sacrificed adaptability for efficiency. Every decision is processed through a collective algorithm that prioritizes the most logical outcome. But logic can be manipulated." The team began to outline their approach. They would need to create a communication strategy that could exploit the fundamental weaknesses in the alien network. It wasn't about destroying the system. It was about introducing uncertainty, creating cognitive dissonance in a network that prided itself on absolute certainty. Dr. Reyes pulled up a series of complex mathematical models. "We need to introduce quantum-level disruptions," she explained, "small variations that will cascade through their entire communication network." Hours turned into days. The team worked in shifts, each bringing their unique perspective to the challenge. They were creating something unprecedented, a multi-layered strategy that combined quantum physics, communication theory, psychological warfare, and pure mathematical innovation. Their workspace was a controlled chaos of holographic displays, quantum computing banks, and walls covered in complex diagrams. Coffee mugs sat next to advanced quantum decryption tools. Takeout containers were scattered between advanced scientific equipment. "We're essentially trying to create a virus," Dr. Tanaka explained, "but not a traditional computer virus. We're talking about a quantum-level information disruption that can propagate through their entire communication network." The breakthrough came during a late-night session. Dr. Martinez had been studying game theory scenarios when she noticed a pattern. "Look," she said, zooming in on a particular section of their alien communication model. "There's a predictability in their decision-making processes. They always choose the most statistically optimal solution." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "Which means they're fundamentally incapable of truly random behavior." The team realized they had found their weakness. The astral concordance's collective intelligence, which they believed made them invincible, was actually their greatest limitation. By introducing carefully crafted information that appeared logical but contained subtle, almost imperceptible inconsistencies, they could create a cascade of uncertainty. "We're going to make them doubt themselves," Dr. Reyes said, a rare smile crossing her face. "We're going to turn their perfect collective intelligence against them." As dawn broke outside their hidden mountain bunker, the team knew they were on the verge of something extraordinary. They weren't just developing a defense strategy. They were creating a completely new form of warfare, one that would challenge everything the astral concordance understood about intelligence, communication, and survival. Humanity's most powerful weapon had always been its ability to think differently, and now they were about to prove it. The first stage of the psychological operation began with a whisper, not a shout. Dr. Elena Reyes watched as her team carefully constructed an intricate web of misinformation that would make even the most sophisticated intelligence doubt its own perceptions. "We're not going to fight their technology," she explained to General Rodriguez during a secure briefing. "We're going to confuse their entire system of understanding." The strategy was multi-layered and brilliant. They would create communication patterns that mimicked the astral concordance's own communication protocols, but contained subtle, almost imperceptible anomalies. Each piece of false intelligence was a carefully crafted puzzle designed to introduce the most dangerous element into a collective intelligence: uncertainty. David Chen, the communication specialist, had developed a series of quantum-encrypted messages that would be intercepted by the alien network. These messages were mathematical masterpieces, logically constructed, but containing hidden inconsistencies that would trigger the aliens' analytical processes. "Think of it like a mathematical virus," Chen explained, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "We're introducing prime number sequences that seem perfect but have deliberate microscopic flaws. To their collective intelligence, it will be like an itch they can't scratch." In the hidden Andean bunker, the team worked with surgical precision. Dr. Akira Tanaka, the behavioral systems expert, had developed psychological profiles of the astral concordance based on their communication patterns. Their collective intelligence, while seemingly perfect, had a fundamental flaw. It valued absolute logical consistency above all else. "They don't just process information," Tanaka said, pointing to complex visualization of alien communication networks. "They believe in the perfection of their collective decision-making. Our job is to introduce doubt." The first test came unexpectedly. A small communication packet was designed to be intercepted by the alien network. It contained seemingly innocuous data about human military preparations, but with carefully embedded inconsistencies that would trigger deep analytical responses. Hours passed. Then something remarkable happened. The alien communication networks began to show signs of hesitation. Microscopic delays appeared in their decision-making processes. Response times became fractionally longer. To an outside observer, these changes would be imperceptible. But to a collective intelligence that prided itself on instantaneous, perfect communication, these were profound disruptions. Dr. Rosa Martinez, the game theory expert, tracked the changes with growing excitement. "Look," she said, pointing to A series of complex graphs. They're starting to second-guess their own protocols. The psychological operation was working on multiple levels. Some messages suggested impossible military capabilities. Others introduced subtle logical paradoxes that would consume enormous computational resources as the collective intelligence tried to resolve them. It was death by 1,000 intellectual cuts. General Rodriguez listened to the briefing with a mixture of scientific fascination and military pragmatism. "You're essentially turning their greatest strength into a weakness," he observed. "Precisely," Dr. Reyes confirmed. "Their collective intelligence is so focused on finding the most logical solution that it becomes predictable. We're creating scenarios that have no clear logical resolution." The team worked in shifts, constantly monitoring and adjusting their approach. They were fighting a war unlike any in human history, a battle waged in the realm of information, psychology, and quantum communication. As days passed, the effects became more pronounced. The alien fleet's movements became less coordinated. Communication between their vessels showed increasing hesitation. It was as if a seed of doubt had been planted in a system that had never known uncertainty. "We're not destroying their technology," Chen explained during a late-night strategy session. "We're breaking their confidence in their own decision-making process." The most brilliant aspect of their strategy was its subtlety. To the astral concordance, these disruptions would appear to be internal system errors. They would never suspect that a species they considered primitive was orchestrating a complex psychological warfare campaign. Humanity had found its weapon. Not a gun, not a missile, but something far more powerful, the ability to make an seemingly invincible intelligence doubt itself. The real battle was just beginning. The breakthrough came at 03:17 a.m., in a moment of collective inspiration that would change the course of human resistance. Dr. Elena Reyes stood before a wall of quantum computing displays, her eyes reflecting the intricate dance of data that had consumed weeks of relentless work. "We're not creating a virus," she told her team, her voice steady with conviction. "We're creating a living intelligence." The quantum algorithm they had developed was unlike anything in human technological history. It was more than a simple piece of code. It was an adaptive learning system that could infiltrate and manipulate the alien communication network from within. Dr. Akira Tanaka had been crucial to the algorithm's development. His expertise in behavioral systems and quantum computing had provided the foundational breakthrough. "Traditional encryption is linear," he explained. "Our algorithm is fractal. It doesn't just break through barriers, it becomes part of the system." The team worked in a specially shielded section of their Andean mountain bunker. Quantum computing banks hummed with an almost living energy. Holographic displays showed complex mathematical models that seemed to breathe and shift with each passing moment. David Chen, the communications specialist, had developed a breakthrough approach to quantum entanglement. "We are not just sending a message," he said, demonstrating a complex set of algorithms. "We're creating a communication entity that can exist in multiple states simultaneously." The algorithm was designed to do the impossible. It would infiltrate the astral concordance's communication network, mimicking their own communication protocols, with such perfection that it would be indistinguishable from their native systems. But unlike their rigid collective intelligence, this digital phantom would have something unique, the ability to learn, adapt, and introduce subtle variations. Dr. Rosa Martinez, the game theory expert, had been instrumental in designing its core behavioral parameters. "It needs to be unpredictable," she insisted, "not randomly, but with a kind of intelligent unpredictability that mirrors human creativity." Weeks of testing had refined the algorithm. It could now generate communication patterns that were simultaneously logical and subtly disruptive. Each interaction would consume computational resources, introducing microscopic inefficiencies into the alien network. The first true test came unexpectedly. A small communication packet was prepared, encoded with the quantum algorithm. As it was released into the intercepted alien communication channels, the team held their breath. Initial moments were silent. Then something extraordinary happened. The algorithm began to spread, not aggressively, not like a traditional computer virus, but with a subtle, almost organic progression. It adapted to the alien communication protocols, learning and shifting. With each interaction, "It's learning," Dr. Tanaka whispered, watching the holographic displays. "Look how it's modifying its own code based on the communication patterns." General Rodriguez watched the demonstration with a mixture of scientific fascination and military pragmatism. "Explain that in simple terms," he requested. Dr. Reyes smiled. "We've created an intelligence that can think like them, but also think differently. It's introducing uncertainty into a system that believes uncertainty is impossible. The digital phantom was more than a weapon. It was a new form of artificial intelligence that blurred the lines between communication, warfare, and pure scientific innovation. Each interaction with the alien network created microscopic variations, subtle disruptions that would gradually erode their confidence. As hours turned into days, the effects became more pronounced. The alien fleet's communication became increasingly fragmented. Decision-making processes showed growing hesitation. What had once been a perfectly synchronized collective intelligence now showed signs of internal conflict. "We are not destroying their technology," Chen explained during a late-night strategy session. "We are making them question their own fundamental understanding of intelligence." The most brilliant aspect of their strategy was its subtlety. To the astral concordance, these disruptions would appear to be internal system errors. They would never suspect that a species they considered primitive was orchestrating a complex technological revolution. Humanity had found its ultimate weapon, an intelligence that could think beyond its own programming, that could adapt and learn in ways the aliens could never comprehend. The digital phantom was alive, and it was just getting started. The first signs of alien confusion appeared subtly. Communication lines between astral concordance vessels began to show microscopic inconsistencies, delays that measured in nanoseconds but were unprecedented in their perfectly synchronized network. In the hidden Andean command center, Dr. Elena Reyes and her team watched with growing excitement. The holographic displays showed a complex web of alien communication networks slowly unraveling. What had once been a seamless, unified system now displayed the first hints of internal conflict. "It's working," Dr. Akira Tanaka said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The digital phantom is introducing systematic doubt into their collective intelligence." General Rodriguez studied the displays with a strategic eye. Years of military experience had taught him to recognize the early signs of systemic breakdown. "Explain what I'm seeing," he requested. David Chen stepped forward, pulling up a series of complex visualizations. "Their communication network is experiencing what we might call cognitive dissonance. Each vessel is starting to interpret shared information slightly differently. It's like a massive game of telephone, but with quantum-level communication. The team had designed their approach with surgical precision. The digital phantom wasn't destroying the alien network. It was subtly reshaping how information was processed and understood. Each communication packet contained microscopic variations that would consume enormous computational resources as the collective intelligence tried to resolve them. Dr. Rosa Martinez pointed to a particularly interesting visualization. Look at the decision-making processes, she explained. They're becoming increasingly fragmented. What was once a unified response is now showing multiple potential interpretations. Across the globe, the first practical effects of their strategy became apparent. Alien fleet movements began to show unexpected variations. Attacks that had previously been coordinated with terrifying precision now displayed slight misalignments. Targeting systems showed momentary hesitations. In orbit above Earth, the massive astral concordance vessels began to move in ways that defied their previous perfect synchronization. A vessel here would pause a microsecond too long. Another would adjust its trajectory with an almost imperceptible uncertainty. Major AIHFY, coordinating global defense efforts, saw the opportunity. "We need to capitalize on these moments of hesitation," she told her team. Scattered human military units, which had been fighting a seemingly hopeless defensive battle, now found themselves facing a slightly less cohesive enemy. The psychological impact was profound. The astral concordance had built its entire civilization on the premise of perfect collective intelligence. The very idea of uncertainty was alien to their fundamental understanding of existence. "We're not just fighting. Their technology," Dr. Reyes explained during a strategy briefing. "We're challenging their entire philosophical understanding of intelligence." The digital phantom continued its work, each interaction creating more complex variations. It was like watching a perfectly constructed machine slowly develop microscopic imperfections that would eventually cause total system failure. Communication intercepts revealed the growing internal conflict. Where once there had been absolute certainty, now there were questions, discussions, debates, concepts that were entirely foreign to the astral concordance's previous mode of operation. "They're experiencing something they've never known before," Tanaka observed. "Individual interpretation, the possibility of being wrong." Military analysts began to see dramatic changes in alien tactical approaches. Weapon systems that had previously been deployed with machine-like precision now showed momentary hesitations. Defensive formations began to develop small, almost imperceptible gaps. General Rodriguez understood the significance. "Doubt is the most powerful weapon we have," he said quietly. The human resistance, which had been fighting a purely defensive battle, now found itself with unprecedented opportunities. Small tactical units could exploit the growing inconsistencies in alien fleet movements. Communication disruptions created windows of vulnerability that had never existed before. As days passed, the transformation became more pronounced. The astral concordance, once a seemingly invincible force of collective intelligence, was slowly being unmade by the most human of qualities. The ability to introduce uncertainty, to question, to adapt in ways that defied logical prediction. Humanity had found its ultimate strategy, not through superior firepower, but through the most powerful algorithm of all, human creativity. The real battle was just beginning. Admiral Krell of the Astral Concordance stared at the communication displays with a growing sense of something entirely new to their collective experience: uncertainty. The human resistance had transformed from a seemingly insignificant target to an incomprehensible threat that defied every strategic protocol in their vast historical database. "We must initiate total elimination protocol," Krell transmitted to the fleet, but even as the command was issued, something felt different. The response was not instantaneous, not unified. Across the solar system, the massive alien fleet began to assemble for what they believed would be the final decisive strike against humanity. Yet each vessel moved with a hesitation that would have been impossible mere weeks ago. Communication lines that once hummed with perfect synchronization now carried undertones of doubt, of individual interpretation. In the hidden Andean command center, Dr. Elena Reyes and her team watched the developing scenario with a mixture of scientific fascination, and strategic intensity. "This is the moment," she told General Rodriguez and the assembled team. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this." David Chen manipulated holographic displays showing the alien fleet's movements. "They're trying to maintain their collective strategy," he observed, "but the cracks are becoming fissures." The digital phantom they had created was now a living entity within the alien communication network. It had done more than introduce uncertainty. It had fundamentally altered the astral concordance's understanding of collective intelligence. Major AIHFY coordinated global defense efforts. Scattered human military units, which had previously been fighting a purely defensive battle, now found themselves with unprecedented opportunities. The alien fleet's once perfect formations showed microscopic inconsistencies that could be exploited. "Target the communication nodes between vessels," Kwesi instructed her tactical teams. "Use the windows of hesitation we've created." Dr. Akira Tanaka monitored the quantum communication patterns. "Their collective intelligence is experiencing something close to what humans would call panic," he said quietly. "They're losing their ability to make unified decisions." The final confrontation was unlike any battle in human history. It wasn't about superior firepower or technological might. It was a war fought in the realm of information, psychology, and collective consciousness. Alien vessels began to fire with decreased precision. Weapon systems that had previously been coordinated with machine-like perfection now showed momentary lapses. A plasma stream here would misfire. A defensive shield there would hesitate a microsecond too long. "They're breaking apart," Dr. Rosa Martinez observed, watching the complex data visualizations. "Not physically, but conceptually. Their entire understanding of intelligence is collapsing." Admiral Krell's final transmission revealed the depth of their transformation. Where once there had been absolute certainty, now there was a tone that almost resembled confusion. "Impossible," the transmission read. "Probability calculations demonstrate our superiority." Yet, the human resistance seized every opportunity. Small tactical units exploited the growing gaps in alien defenses. Communication disruptions created vulnerabilities that had never existed before. General Rodriguez understood the profound nature of their victory. "We didn't defeat them with weapons," he told Dr. Reyes. "We defeated them with the most powerful algorithm of all, human creativity." The Astral Concordance fleet, once a symbol of unassailable technological superiority, now moved like a broken machine. Vessels that had been perfectly synchronized now operated with individual hesitation. Communication lines that had been instantaneous now carried undertones of doubt. As the final confrontation reached its climax, humanity watched in collective amazement. The seemingly invincible alien force was being unmade not by superior technology, but by the introduction of the most human of qualities, the ability to question, to adapt, to find strength in uncertainty. Dr. Reyes looked at her team. They had done something unprecedented. They had fought a war in the realm of information, psychology, and collective consciousness. They had shown that true intelligence is not about perfect calculation, but about the ability to adapt, to question, to grow. The battle was far from over. But humanity had proven something profound. They were not just survivors, they were innovators. The silence that followed the final confrontation was more profound than any sound humanity had ever experienced. Massive alien vessels hung motionless. In Earth's orbit, their once impenetrable formations, now fragmented and uncertain. In the hidden Andean command center, Dr. Elena Reyes and her team watched in a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. "We did it," David Chen whispered, his voice barely audible. General Rodriguez walked slowly between the holographic displays, studying the aftermath. The alien fleet was not destroyed, not in the traditional sense of military victory. Instead, it had been fundamentally transformed. What remained was a collection of vessels experiencing something entirely new: individual consciousness. Dr. Akira Tanaka began analyzing the communication fragments still streaming from the alien ships. "They're experiencing something close to what we would call an existential crisis," he explained. The digital phantom they had created had done more than disrupt communications. It had introduced a concept of individuality to a collective that had never known such a thing. Across the globe, humanity began to emerge from years of defensive survival. Cities that had been reduced to ruins now showed the first signs of reconstruction. Communication networks, once fractured, slowly began to reconnect, but something had fundamentally changed. This wasn't just a military victory, Dr. Rosa Martinez observed. This was a philosophical revolution. The first direct communication from the transformed astral concordance came unexpectedly. It was not a transmission of war or surrender, but a message of profound confusion. They were experiencing something entirely new: the concept of individual perspective, of uncertainty, of potential fallibility. Major AIHFY coordinated the initial response teams. "We're not dealing with a defeated enemy," she told her commanders. "We're dealing with a species experiencing its first moments of true self-awareness." Scientific teams from around the world began to study the transformed alien vessels. What they discovered was beyond anything they had imagined. The digital phantom had done more than disrupt communications. It had introduced a fundamental change in how the astral concordance understood intelligence itself. Dr. Reyes understood the profound nature of their achievement. "We didn't just defeat an enemy," she explained during a global briefing. "We showed them a different way of understanding existence." The alien vessels began to change. Their rigid geometric designs started to show variations. Where once they had been perfectly uniform, now each vessel displayed subtle differences, almost like individual personalities emerging. Diplomatic teams prepared for the most unprecedented first contact in human history. This was not a negotiation with a conquering force, but a conversation with a species experiencing its first moments of true individual consciousness. "They're learning what it means to think independently," General Rodriguez observed. The military strategist in him recognized something profound. They had defeated an enemy not through destruction, but through the most powerful form of transformation. Scientific analysis revealed the depth of the change. The digital phantom had introduced a virus of consciousness, a way of thinking that challenged the astral concordance's fundamental understanding of intelligence. It was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a philosophical revolution. Weeks turned into months. The alien vessels remained in orbit, slowly changing. Communication became more complex, more nuanced. They were learning what it meant to be individuals, to have personal perspectives, to understand the concept of uncertainty. Dr. Chen developed a breakthrough communication protocol. "We're not just talking to them," he explained. "We're helping them understand a new way of existing." The global response was unprecedented. Scientific teams, linguists, philosophers, and communication experts worked together to facilitate this extraordinary moment of transformation. Humanity had not just survived an invasion, they had fundamentally altered another species' understanding of consciousness. Dr. Reyes looked out over the command center, understanding the true nature of their victory. They had proven something profound about intelligence, that true strength lies not in uniformity, but in the ability to adapt, to question, to grow. "We didn't win a war," she told her team. "We showed them a different way of being, As the first rays of a new dawn broke over the transformed world, humanity understood that their greatest weapon had never been technology. It had been the ability to see beyond the obvious, to find strength in uncertainty, to transform conflict into understanding. The real journey was just beginning.